Thanks, Renee. Um, Les has been speaking an ongoing topic series on your veteran value, and particularly focusing in on topics related to job retention and job promotion and discovering and communicating your value on the job. And so Les's topic tonight is veteran value, not good enough. Sounds like an intriguing topic. Les, do you want to introduce your concept and share it with us?
Excellent. Hi, Les. I'm going to share my screen and then jump off a video. It's just easier for me to bounce back and forth. But yes, this is a topic that, unfortunately I feel like comes up more often than not. Can everyone see the presentation?
Yes.
Perfect. And then let me put it in slide mode. So, unfortunately, we talk a lot about the good. We talk about some of the great items, but this was brought up quite a bit last year. No one actually said, "Hey, what's a topic?" But when engaging and coaching, helping, or even what I call Sherpaing, right? We're going in the journey with a lot of folks. This expression came up quite a bit, like just why am I not good enough, or some shape and form. Right. And I just think to myself, how in the world does, any of this ever come down to this? Right. Most things that we failed at in the service were 10 times better than most of the folks sitting on their couch soaking up oxygen. I mean, let's face it. Right. So today I'm glad to address this topic. Hopefully, again, I target in on some anecdotes that people can walk away with it. And I truly feel that, again, whatever state of job search, upward transition, promotion seeking, whatever the case may be, that this helps spur folks in the right direction, not go into a spiral and so forth. So, and I always like this anecdote right here. Sometimes it's just a pivot, right? Not being good enough. Here we go. So with that, just like most times, I'll go through the definition. I'll also share out some of the process and maybe some of the pitfalls, right, of really the job search and or job promotion. I kind of just picked both of them to pick on. I think both have, definitely areas that you really have a blind spot in, and left to your own devices, you'll fill it with your own thoughts, right? And that's where some of the spiraling comes in. But I always feel like, again, veterans can take action. And there's some clear-cut ways of doing it, and hopefully I've been resourceful enough to share those out today. So with the definition, and again, it's been sent to me many times, and I don't necessarily like this definition for this, but I wanted to cite a source. And, here's the thing. I think the veterans' current perception of themselves while they're going through advancement or pursuit of a career, or while they're in transition, they can fall into this mindset of, I feel like I'm doing everything, right? And maybe they have. So I think it's warranted. And then sometimes these synonyms come to mind, right? And again, I've heard in context some of these, and it's kind of disheartening, because we can often see, our friends, our fellow veterans, our comrades, doing a lot. And sometimes it's hard to explain why that may be not enough, right? So, I go back to kind of the job search process, right? And I wanted to research this, and it's important to understand from the veterans' perspective. And a lot of us here at Eco Group have actually been through this, right? And I know this is a general rundown. In fact, Eco Group has far better process maps, accountability templates, right? But I think this one just illustrates my point from a simplistic standpoint, right? Maybe folks just don't know how this is littered, right? And this is the job search process, but if you were to overlay this with promotions or growing businesses or whatever the case may be, again, there's a lot of things that can happen, right? Folks that say, oh yeah, I'm totally prepared, and they just go in and spray and pray, right? People that are exploring, it's like, I can do anything. And they just start, casting a net that's really, really wide, but only 1 inch deep, right? One size fits all. Again, they feel like they can apply to everything. From an interview standpoint, this is when I actually see the biggest pitfalls, because when I ask questions, they're not they're not difficult questions, but I really zing people to the point so that they've really got to put some thought beforehand. Like, how much do you want to make? Well, I didn't think you were going to ask me that question up front. Why not? It's a great qualifying question. It puts us all in perspective, right? Holy smoke, what are stock options? I mean, like, I've actually had folks get offered like a great packet, but they didn't know what the heck it was. And unfortunately, what you say in that moment kind of shapes the rest of it, right? I've also had some folks that are like, hey, so can I get 100,000 more? Well, they didn't say specifically that, but I wanted to exaggerate to make a point. I don't want to go back for a second. So here's the thing. You know, there's a lot of things that folks do that kind of shoot themselves in the foot, but you can also go through all these steps and essentially put together, you know, a great process and feel like you've got it at the end of it, right? And there's also some actual reasons that you're probably out of your control for not getting a job or getting a promotion or getting anything, right? And, you know, as much as I think folks, organizations, even ego groups trying to bridge some of these gaps, there is a lot of misunderstanding of military experience, right? And I hate to say it, some of that comes from cinema, right? These preconceived notions are put into folks' head and they're like, well, I don't need a combatant in my office, right? Well, guess what? A lot of folks haven't seen combat, and the ones that saw combat, I'm pretty sure they can assimilate to the business world, and I would have bet money on it. The second is that they don't attribute lack of civilian work experience. And this is really translation, right? There's a ton of things that translate to work experience. So again, not out of your hand, but sometimes you're not there to teach, coach, or really help those non-veteran hiring managers, right? There could unfortunately be a prejudice or bias, right? Again, some folks are, you know, maybe unconsciously discriminatory in the hiring practices. And it's hard to pinpoint, put your finger on it, and it likely happens, right? Here's one that I thought was interesting that came up over and over again, was the lack of networking opportunities. And again, I think this is more for folks transitioning directly out of the military. But then I started thinking about this one too for folks that actually land a job or been in the workforce. You know, we do, as veterans, put kind of our heart and soul into things, right? Which kind of puts blinders on. We like to perfect our trade. We have a whole bunch of pride in our work. And by the time it's all said and done, maybe we haven't networked as much as the person that probably spends half their time doing it, but they know whom else that can either help or whom else they need to be talking to in regards to moving up or networking. And again, this has come up. The real test of that, or the litmus test of that, is I usually ask folks, you know, that are in transition from, you know, business role to business role, why'd you let your network die? And again, there's multiple reasons for that, but lack of networking. And then insufficient preparation. And again, I don't think it's necessarily on the resume side. Again, I think that getting a good 360, I really think that folks get scared away from the mock interviews. And I hate to say it, as a veteran, you know, you do training cycle, workup, readiness, all those things, and to not do it on a interview where you know the job, you know the roles and responsibilities they're asked for. Hopefully you've been screened in by the recruiter, and this is really your chance to shine. I don't know why anybody would want to go on that cold turkey. And what I mean by cold turkey is not that you don't have your bullet points, but literally have said it before to another human being multiple times so that you can work through it. You can see where you get tongue-tied, where you're trying to put in a word that just doesn't make sense, or you get that feedback. Great, you said, you know, $46 billion less. I have no idea what that means. It's not in my banking account. I don't deal with that on a day-to-day basis. Can you break it down into three main things to give me perspective, right? So again, these are actual reasons for not getting the job, right? And really, you know, sometimes these are out of folks' control. Now, things can spiral because, again, I feel like things definitely go into the black hole when we're talking to folks and they're like, hey, I haven't heard back in a week. Sometimes that's just, you know, the recruiter going through their process. They have to get enough viable candidates. And to be quite honest, if it's a technical job or a higher job, they're screening pretty hard. So if you've made the cut or at least, made it to a certain stage, you can feel some solace in that and feel confident. But hate to say it, if you're looking for a job or you've been, selected for a promotion, but you don't know if you're going to make the final cut, right, in the business role, that can also be pressure. It's like, wow, who's been having lunch with who and so forth, right? And to be quite honest, a lot of these, even though they're again focused on kind of the job transition, at least from the get-go, I do think that a lot of these have crossover, meaning that financial stress, the more money you make, the more money you want to make. So regardless if you're transitioning out of the military, if you had a role, and again, you're looking for those next steps, right? Financial stress can be a big part of that, especially if your family's growing or you're going through a different life cycle, right? Uncertainty about the future, that's a huge one, because guess what? You never know what the corporation may be doing or how the organization is going to restructure. Layoffs are a big thing, and they continue to be as a financial lever that CFOs pull, right? So, I mean, even if you have a job, you always need to be worried about having your job. I don't necessarily mean stressing out all the time, but a lot of these things you can do in continuous nature to keep yourself fresh, and also so that you can reduce that stress, right? Loss of routine. And again, from a standpoint of leaving the military, it's pretty much structured from the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep, right? In the business world, sometimes you get into a job and they're just like, hey, we have these objectives, which are really outcomes. You figure out the how, right? And that's sometimes tough, because if everyone has their objectives and none of them overlap, you're kind of left alone or scrounging or beg, borrowing, and stealing for capacity, resources, or even someone giving you information and expertise, right? And then social isolation. Again, not every company, and I'm talking about Fortune 500s, are suited for veteran workers. In fact, they just considered you part of the pack, and that's a big loss, right? The fact that the loneliness, you can't relate to some other folks because, again, you didn't go to the college they went to, you weren't part of the fraternities, or you just don't seem to be part of the pack, right? This company always hires engineers from this college that were part of this fraternity. Well, it's kind of hard to break in, but if you do break in, well, then you can still feel isolated, right? And then self-doubt, that's a huge one, right? Even though nothing has really, been given back to you saying that, hey, you suck at this, right? That self-doubt and inadequacy fills that void a lot of times, right? And folks may question their skills or qualifications. And that's an unfortunate thing, because again, a lot of times that's unprompted. Lack of purpose, especially, again, while you're looking for a job, what is your purpose while you're trying to fill that why? And sometimes, I'm going to be honest with you, you don't need the full picture. I think a lot of people try to solve their life mystery, and they come to a point where they're like, well, wait a minute, maybe I don't need to do that. But I was going to say, when you have a job, like, where are you trying to go? What's your future? What's your journey? What are the next steps that you're trying to get? What are the resources, right? And sometimes that's hard because, again, job profiles, organization shakeups, restructuring, new technology, better ways of doing that. And sometimes, and again, another stressor is sometimes your boss just changed and you're not even sure why, but now you've got to rebuild all that trust all over again. And the last one is a lot of this stress and pressures can literally put mental and physical strain on you, right? Anxiety, depression, in severe cases, insomnia, right? So, things can definitely spiral out of hand. And I think it's really important to notice this. And the correlation, I do bring to this is that these are all the things, except for maybe financial stress, that come with warfare and being deployed and ramping up, right? I would say even the financial stress does come into play there, because even though you're going to tax-free, there's a ton of things you have to ramp up, and to be quite honest, the security of your family that you're leaving. So again, a lot of things, a deep spiral, these things compound on each other, right? So improvise, adapt, and overcome. Again, you've got veterans, you've got maybe an individual in the state, right? And to be quite honest, you got to pull them out of that nosedive. You just got to pull up on the yoke and pull, right? And what I hope you've noticed in the last 4 slides is that there's nothing really actually that's there indicating that a veteran is not good enough. And in fact, when questioned, again, there's a lot of things that could be happening behind the scenes, biases or so forth. But if you can't put your finger on it and they're out of your control, there are plenty of things that you can do to get back in a positive mindset. But because quite frankly, you don't need to fill all the jobs out there. You just need to fill one, right? So with that, again, good picture here of Gunny Highway. Anyways, reframe negative thoughts. It's key that you put a positive perspective, positive mental attitude behind these things, because quite frankly, you're just wasting time if you're spiraling out of control. And a lot of times you need a support group to help you out of that, right? And a good way of doing that is number 2, focusing on your strengths. Again, there's a lot of things that you may not have in alignment with a role. It just may not click, or again, there's some type of artificial intelligence that screened your resume and you didn't make the cut. Great. You know what? There's more jobs out there, and there continue to be more jobs out there. So focus on your strengths and move forward, right? Set realistic goals. It should be a black hole in your resume, your interviews. If you set unrealistic expectations, I don't mean stretch, I mean unrealistic expectations, meaning that you want to become a CEO of a company, right? A medical device company, and you have no background in medical devices at all. Not sales, not engineering, not marketing, none, right? Now, again, a support group will help you rein those in, or if you're looking to transition, or if that's something really excites you, set you on a course to learning more about it. Again, there's plenty of certificates. There's folks you can network with. You can actually devise, if researching and discovering what you want to do, set yourself up for success. And really, even if you haven't accomplished those items, when you're talking and networking with folks, you set down, hey, this is what I want to accomplish. This is what I found out so far. Are there any other items I should have on my list? Or 2, can you help me with any of these items? Yeah, I went to this, or here's the great symposium, or even the next big trade show is going to be in Minneapolis, right? Something like that. Seek out support. And I think that that's one that we share over and over again, but it has to be an action. It can't just be a bullet. Enough said there. Embrace new experiences. And again, I think that loses its luster after, a certain amount of time. Each person's different. Obviously, you're like, hey, I want that new experience to just come and me start doing that. But again, be open to new experiences, even when they're outside of maybe what your mindset is. And what I mean by that is sometimes there's jobs, or by networking, you learn about a role that its role description wouldn't have been anything you searched on, but everything as a bullet point was perfect. And that happens. And sometimes there's non-released roles out there, and the only way to get to them is networking, right? Practice self-care. This is just really taking care of you so that those mental and physical stressors don't break you down. Because one of the worst things to happen is, again, you start breaking down and then you're not physically or mentally capable and moving on, right? So adapt, really improvising that and overcoming that. And then recognize your accomplishments, right? And everyone in the military has reached some accomplishment some way. And it's good to remember those, right? And really latch on to those, because those were really things in the past that got us through the muck, through the really terrible situations, the worst assignments, whatever you can think of. That's how, you move forward through, right? And I do think that these strategies are used over and over again, right? Either through our organization, others. I think any individual can use them. But like always, I just ask myself, so what, Les? You just gave me some bullet points, right? Again, in Eagle Group, we've got a whole bunch of great processes. I just captured this because it has everything on really one page. Drill down into it, right? And use everything on the previous page. Go after this, right? And again, we've got other workshops on it, so I won't spend much time on it, but try to find out where you can put your strengths is, right? Where you may have let something left on the table, and go after it. But here's also, I said, so what, right? Les, you showed me a process, you showed me some bullets. Here's some actual statistics that I want you to take a look at. And the reason why is I've shared these type of items. Again, it's kind of a rally cry. It's kind of a support mechanism, and it's also things that folks have shared back with me and feedback that they've used in interviews, job promotions. They've intertwined it with their work and then looked at essentially how they could make more money or ask for more money at the end of the year, right? So here, lower turnover rates, and again, when you look at this, right, it's really about pride of work, and that's what it really boils down to me. But what shocked me when researching this was the difference in the national average. Work ethic. I think we understand this. And why I don't like is it says overtime. What I do believe is, veterans, especially the role models that we have in the past, the leaders that, we want to emulate. It wasn't the fact that they worked overtime. It was the fact that they were crafting their skill. They wanted to work more in order to learn more and then really work less, right? And if they were working more, it was to train others and lead others. So, again, that's how I interpret it. And 45% seems like a ton. I don't care what metric you're comparing that to or what amount, that's a ton. What did also shock me was the high levels of education and training. Oftentimes I go, well, someone coming in from boot camp isn't very educated, right? However, when looking at this, I go, it makes sense. One of the biggest things I hear constantly is GI Bill, right? So regardless of whether or not you were listed or officer, folks are going in, getting that bachelor's degree, associate's degree, but many of them go, you know what? If I can get that, I get the master's and get the MBA. I can specialize in some type of expert skill. So when I look at that, I go, holy smokes, that is something that, maybe you didn't have direction, maybe you didn't have the means when you graduated high school, but it just seems like veterans are propelling themselves above the pack in a short amount of time, right? Leadership skills, I talk hours about this. I mean, if you think about levels of management, executive ranks, the biggest thing they need is not necessarily skills, someone typing on the computer. The toughest things are motivation and keeping folks on task. A lot of people have great ideas. In the military, a lot of people have great ideas. But if everyone's not focused on the mission, it'll never happen. I don't care if that's sales. I don't care if that's productivity, throughput, cost savings. I mean, leadership, when it's all said and done, fancy words less, but you need leadership to motivate and keep people in check, right? But you also need to reward and inspire. And I think that, again, folks don't get a lot of leadership opportunities in the business world. You can be in business for 10 years and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're ready. Now you can lead 4 people. I remember in boot camp, it was like, I didn't even graduate yet. I had 13 people I needed to be accountable for, right? So, and then problem solving skills. And this last one, I think, is just attributed to, again, complex situations. Everything's a problem in the military. You got to go fix it, right? So there you go. And again, integrating these mindset, these topics, the actual percentage of numbers, I think you'll have a positive conversation with whomever you're talking to, and they'll really resonate and become that anchor point. Again, I know it's worked in the past, and I know you can find new and different ones. And kind of the last roundup of this is these, and I've just kind of kept track over the last, it seems like a short time, but going on 15 years now, these seem to be great veteran roles and careers. And a lot of folks go sales and go, yep, process, continuing to attack it, not taking a day off, knowing that rejection, right, is part of the case. In fact, one of the best salesperson I knew was actually a drill instructor. And I was like, you don't really sell, do you? And it's like, nope, all I do is go up, get rejection every day. I sold recruits on why they could make it through boot camp. I can sell companies on why they want my product. So again, I think these are bread and butter, but this is not the all-inclusive list. There's plenty more. And what you'll see is, from an entrepreneurship, there's plenty of CEOs that have their roots in the military as their foundation for building their companies. And having exponential growth. So again, that's not inspiration enough. Maybe this is the last one. Really, all these things by yourself can be daunting. Sure, we can give you inspiration. Again, but this isn't my additional plug that, connect yourself with the Eagle Group, connect those veterans with the Eagle Group. But in addition, if there's a hiring manager that just wants to learn more about veteran value, connect them with Eagle Group, right? We'd be happy to enlighten them as well. All right. In closing, again, I hope this becomes a critical video in our library. I wasn't able to cover every topic, but I think some of these items are often, well, many times left unsaid, unaddressed, right? And in Eagle Group, we do help each other refine action plans, like accountability, and become more focused on their approach on growing and reaching folks' full potential. And that's what really fills our cup. So with that, again, not good enough. We're not going to take that mindset. We're not going to take that saying, and we're sure as heck not going to leave on that note. So with that, thank you for the opportunity to share.